Today, I listen to great speeches. I listen to speeches by men that I've greatly admired, men who made a difference. One such man was Martin Luther King, and he gave a message titled, "I have been to the mountaintop." He had seen a better way. He had seen a better land. And when he gave that speech, people listened. They heard what he was saying. They knew, as Moses led the Israelites out of bondage, out of oppression in Egypt, out of a situation of inequity where they were being oppressed and pushed down and marginalized, Moses led them out of that bondage and through the wilderness and eventually to the promised land. But Moses didn't go to the promised land. He went to the mountaintop. He saw the vision and he saw the panorama and he saw the potential and he saw what God had promised. But he saw it from afar. And he knew he wasn't going because God said, "You're not going." Similarly, Martin Luther King said, "I've been to the mountaintop. I see where this is going, but I don't think I'll be going with you." Intuitively, he knew that his days were short, and they were. His life was taken not long after he made that speech. He did not go across the River Jordan, and he knew that wasn't for him, that other people would carry the torch. And I say this because we are inspired by great men who say words that resonate in the hearts of people everywhere. And Martin Luther King's words resonated with every nationality. Yes, it was a movement to liberate the black people, to bring equality to the black communities. But everybody heard Martin Luther King. Everybody with a conscience and a sense of fairness knew what he said was right. And that message was a threat to the status quo. Similarly, the man Martin Luther King was named after, the great Protestant Reformer, Martin Luther, had been to the mountaintop. He set the movement in motion. He had the courage to stand up and say, "There's a better way, there's a better purpose, and there's a better place." And when he did that, and he nailed his 95 Thesis to the door at Wittenberg, people started to listen because it resonated. Just as Martin Luther King's words resonated, Martin Luther, the great reformer, wrote words that everybody was thinking. He said the things that needed to be said, and he stood up and he said, "I have been to the mountaintop." And the system didn't like that. They didn't want people going to the mountaintop. They had restrictions on everything. And I speak of this particularly in the context of the Protestant Reformation. When Martin Luther read the words, "The just shall live by faith," he knew that that was the key. That was the scripture. And based on that, the entire book began to open up to him. And he saw the corruption of the institutional church. And he said, "I have been to the mountaintop, and you can't take that away from me." And he told the people, and the people began to rally because they knew it was true. They knew, like the Israelites, that they were in bondage, that something was wrong, and those words were the words that needed to be spoken at that time in history. And Martin Luther, the great reformer, changed the entire course of the world. History went down a very different path than it would have without those words. Politics changed. Faith changed. Liberty of conscience, liberty of thought, all came to the forefront. And the people knew they had been deprived of that. The system that was in place was bondage